You're watching someone cry on stage. They're holding a golden statue. The room erupts in applause. Millions watch from home, moved by what appears to be genuine emotion. But what you're witnessing isn't emotion. It's the culmination of a psychological warfare campaign that has been waged for months, sometimes years. What you see as tears of joy are often tears of relief. Relief that the performance worked, that the manipulation succeeded, that the carefully constructed persona convinced enough people to hand over validation in physical form. Tonight we're going to dissect the psychology behind Hollywood awards ceremonies. Not the glamour, not the celebration, the dark machinery beneath it all. Because when you understand what's really happening in that room, you'll never watch an acceptance speech the same way again. This isn't about movies, it's about the human hunger for worship, the pathological need to be seen as superior, and the lengths people will go to convince others and themselves that they are gods among mortals. Let's enter the psychology of manufactured divinity. The narcissist's cathedral. Picture a room filled with people who have spent their entire lives being told they are special, not just talented, special. From childhood, they were singled out, praised, celebrated. They learned early that their face, their voice, their presence could command attention in ways other people's couldn't. And something happened in their psychology. A belief formed, deep and unshakable. I am not like other people. This is where pathological narcissism takes root. In the soil of endless validation, narcissistic personality disorder exists on a spectrum, but at its core lies one fundamental distortion, a grandiose self-image that requires constant external validation to maintain. The narcissist doesn't just want admiration, they need it to survive psychologically, and Hollywood awards ceremonies, they are temples built specifically for this hunger. Watch the faces in that audience. Not the winner, everyone else. You'll see something fascinating. Practiced smiles, controlled expressions, but underneath, seething. Because for every person who wins, there are dozens who didn't. And each loss isn't just a loss, it's a narcissistic injury, a wound to the grandiose self-image. How could they choose someone else? Don't they see my brilliance? Don't they understand my superiority? The award itself is meaningless, a piece of metal, but what it represents is everything. Public confirmation that you are in fact as special as you've always believed yourself to be. This is why you see grown adults cry over these statues, why some people's entire sense of self shatters when they don't win. The award isn't validating their work, it's validating their existence. The campaign, manufactured authenticity. But here's where it gets darker. You don't just show up and win. There's a campaign, a months-long psychological operation designed to manipulate voters into believing a carefully constructed narrative. This is where we see manipulation at the industry level. Studios spend millions on for your consideration campaigns. Not just advertisements, psychological influence operations. They study the voting body. They understand what narratives resonate, what wounds to touch, what virtues to signal. An actor doesn't just promote their film, they promote a version of themselves. Watch any pre-awards interview circuit. The actor who was known for being difficult suddenly has stories about their grandmother. The one with a reputation for vanity suddenly champions social causes. The person who never mentioned their struggles now shares intimate trauma, but only the kind that makes them look brave, never broken. This is calculated vulnerability. Psychologists call this impression management, the conscious and unconscious process of controlling how others perceive you. But at this level, with this much at stake, it becomes something more sinister. It becomes the construction of a false self so convincing that even the person wearing it starts to believe it's real. You're not watching authentic human beings share their truth. You're watching master manipulators deploy empathy as a weapon, authenticity as a strategy, vulnerability as a tool to trigger the helper instinct in voters. Vote for me because I suffered. Vote for me because I represent something important. Vote for me because I'm not like those other actors. I'm real. And the most disturbing part? Some of them have done this so long constructed so many versions of themselves that they no longer know which one is real. The mask has become the face. The power hierarchy. Now let's talk about what's really happening in that room. This isn't a celebration among equals. It's a rigid power hierarchy made visible. Look at the seating chart of any major awards ceremony. It's not random. Front rows, A-list stars, studio heads, directors with power. Middle rows, rising stars, supporting players, television actors. Back rows, unknowns, first-timers, plus ones who'll never return. This is a spatial representation of Hollywood's caste system, and everyone in that room knows exactly where they sit and what it means. Dominance hierarchies exist in all social primates, but humans have made them psychological rather than just physical. In Hollywood, your position in the hierarchy determines everything, not just where you sit, but who returns your calls, whose projects get greenlit, whose reputation survives scandal. The awards ceremony is where this hierarchy becomes ritualized. When a presenter says someone's name, they're not just announcing a winner. They're publicly confirming that person's ascension in the power structure. And when someone wins repeatedly, Best Actor, Best Actress, Best Director, what they're really winning is consolidation of power, because in Hollywood, awards translate directly to leverage. An Oscar winner can demand $20 million instead of $10 million. They can choose their projects, fire their directors, demand final cut. The gold statue is a key that unlocks doors most people will never even see. But here's the psychological trap. The higher you climb in this hierarchy, the more you have to lose, and loss becomes unbearable. This is why you see legendary actors become bitter, why some become reclusive, why others desperately campaign year after year, even when it's obvious they're chasing something they'll never catch again. They tasted dominance, and withdrawal from dominance feels like death. The performance of gratitude. Let's analyze what happens when someone wins. They walk to the stage, they take the statue, and then they perform gratitude. But watch closely, listen to what they actually say. I want to thank the Academy. Translation: I want to thank the gatekeepers who finally recognized my superiority. This is such an honor. Translation: this confirms what I've always known about myself. I didn't expect this. The most common lie in Hollywood. Studies of award acceptance speeches reveal fascinating patterns. Most winners have prepared extensively. Some have worked with speech coaches. Many have written multiple versions depending on whether they win or lose. This isn't spontaneous emotion. It's scripted emotional manipulation designed to make them appear humble while actually reinforcing their elevated status. The psychology here is complex. They must appear grateful. False humility is expected, but not so humble that they seem undeserving. They must thank others to appear generous, but position themselves as the driving force behind the achievement. It's a tightrope walk between narcissistic pride and socially acceptable modesty. But some winners reveal more than they intend. Watch for the speech that focuses entirely on the self. No real acknowledgement of others, just names listed as obligation. These reveal grandiose narcissism. The winner genuinely believes they succeeded alone, that others merely orbited their genius. Watch for the speech that becomes a political platform. This reveals messiah complex, the belief that their platform gives them moral authority to shape society. Watch for the speech that name-drops industry power players excessively. This reveals calculated networking, using the moment not for gratitude but for social positioning. And watch for the speech that seems genuinely overwhelmed, unable to speak coherently. This might be the only authentic moment you'll see all night, when the psychological armor cracks and the person underneath briefly appears. But even that moment will be analyzed, critiqued, and potentially weaponized in the days that follow. The psychology of losing. Rao Bondfroth. Frabayev tu von Kapropibodhiof. Now let's talk about everyone else in that room. The nominees who didn't win, the attendees who weren't nominated, the people whose names will never be called. This is where the real psychological darkness lives. Social comparison theory tells us that humans constantly evaluate themselves against others. But in that room, comparison becomes torture. You're sitting there, dressed in borrowed jewelry, having spent months convincing yourself this is your year. You've done the campaign, given the interviews, played the game perfectly, and then someone else's name is called. What happens psychologically in that moment is called narcissistic rage, but it can't be expressed. You must smile, you must applaud, you must perform happiness for the person who just took what you believed was rightfully yours. This is psychological violence against the self. Cameras catch it sometimes. A flash of rage before the smile locks into place. A moment where the mask slips and you see the real person underneath, humiliated, furious, devastated. But here's what makes it darker. Many of these people will go home and convince themselves they're fine, that the award doesn't matter, that they're above such shallow validation. This is called cognitive dissonance. When your beliefs conflict with reality, your mind rewrites the narrative to protect itself. I didn't really want it anyway. The winner didn't deserve it. Awards are meaningless political games, but the wound remains, and for some, it never heals. Some actors never recover from losing awards they expected to win. Their careers stall, their confidence shatters. They become bitter, difficult, unemployable. This is psychological violence against the self. Cameras catch it sometimes. A flash of rage before the smile locks into place. A moment where the mask slips and you see the real person underneath, humiliated, furious, devastated. But here's what makes it darker. Many of these people will go home and convince themselves they're fine, that the award doesn't matter, that they're above such shallow validation. Because what they lost wasn't just an award. They lost the external validation that their entire sense of self was constructed upon, and without that validation, they don't know who they are, Fredantrin. The manufactured moment, Pridetandsprepowered, the Nachtavoken Beaker. Let's pull back the curtain on the ceremony itself. You think you're watching spontaneous moments of human connection, genuine surprise, authentic emotion. You're watching a scripted television show where even the mistakes are calculated. Award shows are meticulously choreographed psychological experiences designed to manipulate your emotions at home. Every camera angle is chosen for maximum emotional impact. Every presenter pairing is selected to create narrative tension. Every musical cue is timed to trigger specific feelings. When you see a standing ovation, consider. Sometimes the audience is prompted by producers. When you see someone crying in the audience, consider. Cameras find the people most likely to create dramatic reactions. When you see a shocking upset, consider. The producers often know who's winning and engineer the moment for maximum drama. This is emotion as product. Your brain doesn't distinguish between real emotional experiences and manufactured ones. When you watch someone cry on stage, your mirror neurons fire. You feel what they appear to feel. Oxytocin releases. You bond with someone you've never met. This is weaponized empathy. Award shows understand this perfectly. They're not documenting genuine moments. They're constructing psychological experiences designed to make you feel connected to people who exist in an entirely different reality than you. Realste. The person crying on stage is worth $50 million. They live in a world you'll never access. They have resources, power, and privilege you cannot imagine. And yet in that moment, they've made you feel for them. This is perhaps the most sophisticated manipulation of all, making the ultra-powerful appear vulnerable, making the unreachable seem human, making you invest emotionally in people who would never invest in you. The aftermath. When the mask comes, the ceremony ends, the cameras shut off, and something changes. The winners go to exclusive after-parties where the performance of humility drops, where they hold their statues and bask in the worship of people who, hours earlier, were competitors, where the narcissistic supply is consumed like a drug. Reports from these parties are revealing. Some winners become grandiose, holding court, accepting praise as their due, treating staff and lesser attendees with contempt. The mask of gratitude was for the cameras. In private, the true self emerges. Others spiral. The reality of winning sets in, that the achievement they've been chasing for years didn't actually fill the void inside them, that they feel the same, that the statue is just metal. This is the narcissist's nightmare. Achieving the ultimate validation and discovering it's not enough. Because here's the truth about external validation. It never satisfies. Each win creates hunger for the next. Each award becomes a standard to maintain. Each moment of worship must be repeated, exceeded, topped. The person who wins their first Oscar immediately begins worrying about their second. The person with 2 begins comparing themselves to those with 3. And those with multiple begin obsessing about their legacy, about being remembered as the greatest. There is no end point, no moment of satisfaction, only an escalating hunger that can never be filled. This is why so many award-winning actors struggle with addiction, depression, and psychological collapse. The validation they received was supposed to fix them, supposed to prove they were worthy, supposed to fill the void. Instead, it revealed that the void is unfillable, that no amount of external worship can repair internal emptiness, that the person they've constructed for public consumption isn't real, and the real person underneath is still broken, still scared, still desperate to be loved. Conclusion: the mirror. So what are we really watching when we watch Hollywood awards? We're watching people with pathological needs for validation engage in elaborate psychological warfare to convince others to provide that validation. We're watching manufactured authenticity compete against manufactured authenticity. We're watching narcissists trigger your empathy so you'll invest emotionally in their ascension. But here's the darkest truth of all. We participate. We vote in online polls. We have passionate arguments about who deserved to win. We cry when our favorites lose. We celebrate when they win as if their victory somehow validates us. Why? Because we're doing the same thing they are. We're seeking validation through association. We're constructing identities around the celebrities we worship. We're filling our own voids with their manufactured moments. The celebrity on stage, holding a golden statue, and you on your couch holding your phone, are engaged in the same psychological process. You're both seeking external validation to confirm internal worth. You're both performing for audiences. You're both terrified that without that validation, you're nothing. Hollywood awards aren't an aberration of human psychology. They're a perfect reflection of it. The only difference between the person on stage and the person watching is that their performance is more expensive, more polished, more visible. But underneath, the same hunger, the same emptiness, the same desperate need to be seen, to be valued, to be worshipped. They're not gods among mortals. They're just humans who found a way to monetize the void we all carry, and we worship them for it because it means maybe, somehow, our voids can be filled too. They can't.